Alright, what is up? My financially woke fam. You know, a lot of people hit me up asking for the secret to making big money, like, yo, dude, spill the beans, how'd you do it? And honestly, I tell them the truth, but nobody ever believes me. It is like they're waiting for some magic pill, some secret handshake, or a special crypto coin that is gonna moon overnight. Nah, fam, it is way more boring than that, and that is the beautiful, brutal truth of it all. Look, the financial situation for way too many Americans, and honestly folks all over the globe, it is ugly. I mean, uglier than that damn Pentagon thief from Black Ops Zombies. You remember him, right? That dude wasn't just trying to snatch your weapons. He was a walking, talking metaphor for all the stuff trying to steal your hard-earned cash, the overpriced subscriptions you barely use, those impulse buys that give you a 5-minute dopamine hit and then a month of regret, the get-rich-quick schemes that promise the world and deliver an empty wallet. That is the Pentagon Thief. Always lurking, always trying to swipe your freedom, your future. And let me tell you, the fine people of this community, we're not having it. Not on my watch today. We're setting up the defenses, we're talking smart investing, hardcore financial discipline, and making sure your money is safe, secure, and working its butt off for you. Not against you. This video, it is loaded up, buckle up, buttercups. Now, I see a lot of folks out there, everybody nowadays is obsessed with looking rich, right? Buying the big fancy house, flexing watches, cars, that whole luxury lifestyle facade. But on this channel, we ain't like everybody else. I'm not interested in looking rich, just to impress a bunch of randos. You know what I'm interested in? Actually being rich. Like for real. Some of the richest people I know, I'm talking millions. In some cases even tens of millions of dollars. The normal, everyday folks I grew up with in Wisconsin. They ain't pushing Lambos, they ain't rocking Rollies, and they sure as heck aren't decked out in head-to-toe designer clothing. Nah, my friends. These are the folks wearing jeans, a comfy sweater or sweatshirt, driving a Honda or a Toyota. So how do these normal people accumulate so much wealth? It is not by buying stuff, it is by investing, and investing smart. A lot of you have been asking me to make a video on this, wondering where to even begin. So consider this my crack at it. Today we're diving deep into the principles behind investing, different strategies, account types, stocks, historical market returns, even a little Bitcoin action. I want to cover a lot, consider it an information dump, but I'll organize it as best as I can to keep it straight to the point. I've got a decent amount of experience in this game, and honestly, it has made me quite a bit of money, especially during the boom of the last 6 years or so. I even worked for 2 large financial firms during that time. Names I won't drop because this video isn't affiliated with them. Just know I've been around people talking money for a long time. At the end of the day, we're gamers, we're strategists. So let's define our goal. Our North Star, it is simple, but it is powerful. Make the gap between what you make and what you spend as big as you possibly can, and then you invest the rest with a long-term view. I'm talking a decades-long view here. I don't care what the market does next year or the year after. That is short-term noise. We're playing the long game. And in this video, we're going to use math, history, and even human nature to our advantage. This is going to be a longer one, with tons of info. So I'll do my best to explain it all to someone completely new while still giving you seasoned investors some solid gold nuggets. Let's get this journey started. Before we truly begin, a few disclaimers, because, you know, gotta cover my bases. While this video covers investment principles and basic steps, I'm American, and my experience is mostly with American markets. If you're one of my awesome viewers from Europe, the UK, or Latin America, please still watch. I'm pretty sure the core principles are universal. A little less than half my audience is international. And even though the process might be similar, I'm just not as familiar with the specific account types, markets, and laws outside of the good ol' US of A. I do own a few foreign stocks, but my knowledge of international investing is limited, so some of this information could differ. If you're from another country, hit me up in the comments and tell me about the parallels between your system and the US system. I'm always down to learn. Second disclaimer, and this is a big one. I am not a professional financial advisor by any stretch of the imagination. These are all just my opinions, straight from my brain to yours. Stocks and investments are risky, and yeah, you can definitely lose money, so please, for the love of all that is holy, don't just blindly listen to some dude from Wisconsin on the internet. Do your own research, and if you need personalized advice, go consult an actual professional who can tailor recommendations to your specific situation. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about why investing is absolutely essential. You hear this buzzword thrown around constantly. Investing. But what is it? Really? In simple terms, investing means putting your money into something with the goal of making it grow over time instead of spending your money. Now, you're using it to buy an asset, like a stock, a bond, or real estate, and you expect that asset to increase in value or generate income in the future. You can make money through asset appreciation, which just means the price goes up, or through income. Think of dividends where a company pays you for being an owner. Or if you're a landlord, people pay you rent. Investing is a strategy of putting your money somewhere with the expectation of getting more back in the future. It is how normal people accumulate wealth, because little amounts invested consistently over time can grow into very, very large amounts. There is this famous investing story, true story, about a janitor named Ronald Red. This guy, a janitor and gas station attendant from Vermont, quietly amassed a fortune of over $8 million. How, you ask? Through smart investing and frugal living despite his modest, even low income. Ronald lived simply, saved diligently, and consistently invested in high-quality, dividend-paying stocks for decades. He avoided unnecessary expenses and let the magic of compound interest do its work. His story blew up after he died in 2014, when he donated millions to local charities and a hospital. It just goes to show you, anyone, even someone with a low-paying job, can achieve financial success through patience, discipline, and long-term investing. It is not about being a genius. It is about being consistent. So how do normal people like Ronald become millionaires? Well, there are a few ways. Let's start with the stock market. It is one of the most popular investment vehicles for millionaires. According to a 2022 study by Ramsey Solutions, 75% of millionaires invest in stocks consistently. They often invest through index funds, ETFs, individual stocks, or retirement accounts, like 401ks or IRAs. Don't worry, I'll break down all these account types later in the video. Just stick with me for now. First, we need to talk about inflation and why investing is non-negotiable for the average person. Many people make the huge mistake of keeping most or even all of their money in cash. Just sitting in a bank account, this is a bad practice, thanks to something called inflation. You hear about inflation on the news all the time, but it is the main reason you need to be investing. Inflation, simply put, is when the overall prices of goods and services in an economy increase over time. This usually happens at about 2% per year, which means your money loses its purchasing power. In plain English, the same amount of money buys less than it did before. For example, if a loaf of bread costs $2 today, with inflation, that might be $2.50, or even $3. In the future, inflation just reflects how the value of money decreases as prices rise. Some inflation is good. It encourages spending, which keeps the economy healthy, but holding large amounts of cash, that is a bad call in most scenarios, because you're actually locking in a loss of value over time. You're literally getting poorer by doing nothing. A prime example of inflation's power. In 1950, the average house price in the United States was approximately $7,000. Fast forward to the third quarter of 2020. The median home sales price was $420,000. That is an insane increase, right? That is why holding cash isn't good for you. Prices will continue to inflate, and we need to invest in stocks to beat this beast over the long term. Next, I want to share my full investing story and the big takeaways from each step. I'm 28 now, and I've had some success doing exactly what I'm preaching. It is thanks to a few factors: a good market, a decent salary, picking mostly safer investments, and staying super disciplined with my investments and living cheaply. I graduated university with a degree in computer science in 2019, and thankfully, had a nice job with a good salary lined up. Now I was suddenly making significantly more money than my lifestyle demanded, and my first thought wasn't, oh, time to buy all the shiny things, even though I totally had the cash to inflate my lifestyle. Instead, I wanted to learn about money and how it really works. Not knowing what to do with my spare cash, I dove headfirst into the world of investing. I devoured books, articles about legendary investors, like Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, Ray Dalio, and others. I also watched a ton of YouTube videos and picked the brains of successful people in my life, asking them all the basic investment questions. One thing that has been crucial to my investing journey is taking matters into my own hands and taking action. It is so important to start this as young as you possibly can. With my spare money, I began investing seriously. I opened an investment account with Ally Bank, and mainly bought basic, large company stocks, think Amazon, Facebook, McDonald's, and also stuff in technology that I was genuinely interested in. So if I was watching Netflix, I'd buy Netflix stock. That was my simple logic at the time. I also opened a 401k through my employer, which had an employer match. Free money, baby. And I opened a Roth IRA through Schwab. I'll explain all these accounts in detail later, but just know they're different investment accounts with various tax benefits. For my retirement accounts, I picked safer index funds and took a little more risk in my taxable brokerage accounts with individual stocks. I meticulously tracked all the money I could invest each month and set clear financial goals for myself. By the time February 2020 rolled around, the SP 500, which tracks 500 of the biggest U.S. companies, was up quite a bit since I started, and my investment accounts were worth about $40,000, which for a 24-year-old felt pretty darn good. My hard work and cheap lifestyle were paying off, and then boom, COVID hit and markets crashed. About 33% within about a week. On paper, I lost around $15,000. My hard work was vanishing into thin air, that is months and months of saving for me. And for many people, a lot of folks lost years of life savings. Or even their lives during COVID. I'd never seen anything like it, and panic was definitely in the air, both about the virus and the financial health of Americans, especially older Americans. I really wanted to sell my stocks, to avoid future losses. The fear was real, but the smart people in my life, they told me, now is the time to double down, when everyone else is selling. As Warren Buffett famously said, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. I didn't know it at the time, but a generational investment opportunity was staring me right in the face. Amidst all the chaos, I decided to double down. I moved back home with my parents, tightened my belt even further, and tried to invest literally everything I had during that downturn. And guess what? The market ended up rebounding aggressively in the second half of 2020. And my investment portfolio, it absolutely exploded, all because I was able to buy stocks at such cheap prices. From there, I continued to keep the gap between my salary and my expenses as wide as I possibly could, investing tens of thousands of dollars per year. And during corrections, or off years, like 2022, I doubled down and invest even more. I took advantage of cheap prices whenever I could. As the market kept climbing, my portfolio turned into several $100,000. And each correction, each downturn became an opportunity to add more to the game. That is what led me to where I am now, where I could comfortably quit my 9-to-5 job, take some time off to follow my dreams, and get away from the grind that was slowly draining my soul. Seriously, without investing, I'd have like half the money I do now. I'm talking a 6-figure lifetime gain from investments. And even better, my investment portfolio now pays me about $600 per month in dividends for doing absolutely nothing other than being an investor in these companies. And I want that number to grow over time, because it is literally money for doing nothing, just for having money. As I said earlier, this is the mindset I want us all to cultivate. When you have extra money, don't think, where am I going to spend it? Instead, think, how am I going to invest it so it becomes more money for me in the future? My overall strategy has been simple: maintain a high salary, keep expenses as low as I possibly can, and invest the rest in the stock market. The biggest flex isn't buying the expensive thing, it is knowing that you have the ability to buy that expensive thing many times over. That is true wealth. Again, we want to invest often. And we also need to think about taxes, because taxes can seriously eat away at your investment gains. This mindset also involves using accounts with tax benefits, meaning legally paying less taxes. Principles like diversification, not putting all your eggs in one basket, or too much of your money into one thing. That is also crucial. I invest in many industries, different asset types, various companies, and always with a long-term view. When I buy a stock, I like to pretend I won't even consider touching that money for a decade or longer. Most of the time, I invest based on value, not speculation. I want to understand what I'm buying, and ideally, I want something that is making money for me in the future. I don't get fancy. I simply purchase stocks, ETFs, mutual funds. I stay away from options or any sort of leveraged bets. That is a whole other ballgame. Now, for this next part, little disclaimer, there is some boring yet incredibly beautiful math involved, but it is absolutely crucial to understanding how investing works. So I'll explain it as best as I can. There is a formula that runs our lives, whether we know it or not, and here it is, the formula for compound interest. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the nitty-gritty details of the math, but just know this equation is a predictor of how much money you can gain from investments. And arguably the most important and exponential variable in this equation is time. What do I mean by exponential? In simpler terms, if you start younger, it is infinitely easier to get rich. And you have to contribute much less, because your money has a longer time horizon to grow and grow and grow. The longer your money has invested, the easier it is to accumulate wealth. Now, why are you showing me these stupid charts, you ask? Well, here is why. Here is the historical return of the United States stock market over time. It has historically been about 7 to 10% per year. So as long as America is growing and prosperous, the market should continue to go up over time. Here is another chart showing the annual returns each year in a bar graph. You'll notice the positive years far outweigh the negative years. There are some good ones, some bad ones, but from the beginning to the end, it generally goes up about 10% per year over the long haul. Now, do some math for yourself. You can assume a 7 to 10% return per year on average, and this should make you some serious money over the long term. Now, past performance is not an indicator of future success, and there is no guarantee we'll have these exact same returns over the next 100 years as we did in the 100 years before us. But me, I like betting on it. I wouldn't bet against it. The more money you have at play, the more you accumulate as it grows. For example, if you have $1,000 invested and the market goes up 10%, you made $100. But if you have $10,000, you made $1,000. And if you have 100,000 or even $1 million invested, you're making some legitimate money just from the stock market. It can go up or down on a yearly basis, but over time, it trends upward. Imagine if you had $100,000 invested last year in 2023.